Hello YouTube! Welcome back to another episode of Folky Fridays. My name is Nye. You join me live in the Finale Guitar Shop in Sheffield, and as ever you are watching Folk Friend, your one-stop shop for Celtic backing guitar tutorials, as shown in that corner, I think, unless it's that corner. It's always hard to tell with these things. In today's video I'm going to be showing you... hey Brian, thanks for tuning in. In today's video I'm going to be showing you a really useful little trick which you can use if you just want to kind of have a go at writing some fingerstyle arrangements of tunes in G major or E minor or even potentially A minor. You can use this one really simple little trick, mainly G major. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be taking a tune which I did a fingerstyle arrangement of once before called Tell Her I Am. It's a really nice tune, and my arrangement of it appears in my first book of fingerstyle guitars in guitar arrangements in standard tuning, which came out just about a year ago now, I think. I'll put a link to that as well if you'd like to get hold of it. There's 10 arrangements in it. 10 arrangements of kind of classic Irish tunes for kind of jazzy fingerstyle in standard tuning. There we go, it's in the chat there. But yeah, so I'll play you the arrangement first, and then I'll show you how I could have written a much easier version of it. You'll notice as well that I'm playing it on the electric guitar, because to play it on my acoustic with its high action and medium gauge strings, which is how I like it for thrashing it, but it's quite hard to play on that guitar, so I thought I'd play it on the electric instead. Anyway, here's how it sounds. Ooh. I'll turn it up a bit actually, it's very quiet. Something like that. Yeah, so that's the version of the tune that appears in the book, and it's the last tune in the book. It's definitely my favourite one in there. It's also the hardest to play by quite a long way, hence why it's at the end. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is take that melody like that. That's the that is the where is the man? which man? Hiya Michael, thanks for tuning in. Anyway, yeah, so that's the melody. It's a 3-part tune in G, very nice jig. It's sort of unusual because it doesn't really resolve back to G. It always ends on D, like the last part. Which I like that about it, because it's a very kind of wistful tune and it never really resolves, so that kind of fits. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a rough version of the chords, and I'll put them in the chat. So we've got the chords are basically C, optional G, 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 C, C, then C, G, 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 C, D. That's the A part, like that. And over the top of that, we're going to fit the melody, etc. In fact, no, I'll go back to the acoustic now. I've finished with the electric, really, haven't I? Back over there. That gorgeous blue electric is for sale, by the way. If anyone wants one, give me a shout. Find all the guitars will be going up on our new online shop this weekend on finaleguitar.co.uk/shop. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my melody and I'm going to take some root notes. And G is the most convenient key because you can do all the root notes with your middle finger, believe it or not. And some of them you don't even need any fingers for. So my root note to start with is going to be G, and I'm going to do that with my middle finger on the bottom string. And over the top of that, I'm going to practice playing a G major scale. So it's really easy to get the top octave of a G major scale over that, just using my index finger. So that's the 2nd fret on the G string. So we've got G open, then the 2nd fret, then the B string open, then the 1st fret. Then for the 3rd fret, I'll always use my ring finger, so it's going to be the 3rd fret on the B string, then the top string open, then 2nd fret with the index finger, and 3rd fret with the ring finger. So I can get the whole scale and just keep the G note at the bottom there. The other thing is that if you think about a G major chord, the notes in a G major chord are G, B and D, and you've got G and B strings there open. So there's my G and B. So if I'm twiddling about with a tune, you always want the melody note to be the highest in whatever you're playing if you're playing fingerstyle. because the highest note is what people remember. The lowest note is what they interpret the rest of the chord based on, and the highest note is memorable, that's what they hum. So they feel the lowest note and they think the highest note, I suppose. So if I'm doing something like that or whatever, my G and my B string open will always harmonise. So if my tune note's on the top string, I can have those two in as well and it'll make a nice G chord. Something like that. I can play the whole little bit of the melody there using just 2 fingers and my G root note at the bottom. When I want to go to a C chord, I take that root note and I just move it up a string. So if I wanted to do that part of the melody over a C, it would be like... So again, I could do all of the melody like that. If I wanted a D chord under it, it would be just the open D string. So you can see there, with those 3, I've got my main chords for the whole tune, just by moving that finger about or taking it off. Picking wise, by the way, I basically always pick the things the same way. I think this is pretty much standard practice. If you've got a bass note, it's always going to be on the bottom 2 strings. It will be with your thumb. And if your chord is a D chord in standard tuning, or your bass note's on the D string, then you move your thumb up. But generally your thumb, its kind of domain is the bottom 2 strings. And then your 4 other fingers line up with the top 4 strings. So little finger on the top one, ring finger on the B string, G finger, middle finger on the G string, and index finger on the D string. And it's really good practice just to get used to always using those fingers for those strings, pretty much whatever kind of fingerstyle-y stuff you're playing. Because if you get used to that, then whichever string you want, your finger will already be lined up ready for it, and you just waggle it. So yeah, that's kind of general good practice. The only time I change that is if the bass note is on the D string, then I move my thumb up 1, and consequently all the others have to move up 1 as well to make space for it. Hey Keith, thanks for tuning in. So, yeah, going back to this melody part then, let's have a look at the block of chords that I wrote there. So we've got half a bar of C, then half a bar of G, then a lot of G, then a bar of C, like that. So it's very easy just using that one finger moving and my little scale shape at the top to play all of that. You might find as well that you need to go lower than the G string. So if you need the rest of a scale, if you go down like that, you can get all the way down to the low D, the low 5th. You probably won't need to go any lower than that, generally speaking. So going from D all the way up, we've got D, 2nd fret on the D string with the index finger, 4th fret with the ring finger, then the G string, then 2nd fret with the index finger, then B string, 1st fret with the index, 3rd fret with the ring finger, top string is the open string, 2nd fret with the index finger, and ring finger for the 3rd fret, and that gives you all of it. So all together for the A part we've got something like right at the end you've got a D, which is just the D. And you'll notice there, because it's a D root note, just because of the way that I've practiced always playing the root note with my thumb automatically hopped onto the D string there, because there's a D root note there. So that's a really good thing to get yourself used to if you're doing G, C, D. Just always do the root notes with your thumb. So that's that. Tweaking the dials, fixing a broken string. Why have I gone? Strange. C, D. And maybe you've lost the stream out there. Is anyone else having problems? If you could just leave a comment if you've lost me anyway. Anyway, let's have a look at the second part. So the second part, the chords are G, 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 G. I'm going to put an A minor, A minor, A minor, A minor, A minor, G, 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 C, C, D, D. Something like that, and then it does it all again. So here, I'm going to show you a really nice thing you can do with this little thing. It's great for hammer-ons, and hammer-ons with a root note under it sound really nice. So I'm going to do something like that. That's good, Brian. Yeah, very biblical. So yeah, if you if you're going here, we're going A, B, B, D, B, G. That's the notes for the melody in the second part. And what I'm going to do is, to avoid having to pluck the same string twice, instead of doing that, I'm going to hammer onto that B on the 4th fret, and then use my other finger to play the open B string. So that way my slow, clumpy fingers can still play the quick notes there. And then I'm going to do a pull-off, because basically I always try and avoid the same string being plucked twice, because my hands aren't that fast. So I'm going to do a little pull-off there to get from the D down to the B. Something like that. Here we've got an A minor. So what I'm going to do is use my open A string with my thumb. That's that bit. Now if you look at my hand here, what I've done is I've made an A minor chord. I've deliberately made it with the wrong fingers. There's two ways you can do this. The best way actually is probably your snail eyes or your rock and roll fingers. If you look at my left hand there, his little snail eyes coming out. That's like an A minor chord but without the index finger. So that enables me to get the tune note at the top and keep the chord shape underneath. And the more notes from the chord that you can have at a time, the better, because that way you can hit multiple strings and have a nice harmonious chord, rather than just a root and a melody over the top. So if you're used to fingering the chord that way, you're going to have to do the 4th fret for the F sharp with your little finger. So this is a good way to do an A minor chord if you're going up. Like that, you can do it. If you're going to have lower notes in there, then I prefer to do it with these two fingers. Because that way I can use my ring finger for the big stretch to the 4th. Got something like that. Here I'd put in an E minor for two reasons. Number one, because it sounds nice to have a minor substitute for G with the bass note going down when the tune goes up. And number two, because I can't physically play G, so I play E instead because it's an open string. Like that. Again, if you think about E minor, the G and the B are notes from within your E minor chord, so you can leave those strings in and you'll get a nice E minor chord. And then we're back to A minor. Or C. If we do C, it's going to be just a C chord. And I'm going to move that middle finger then to go down the scale. Like that. And then my thumb moves up because it's a D root note. Like that. So you can kind of see there the principle. I'll run you through quickly all the chords in the key, because you could take this simple framework and use your substitutions to come up with various different chord options. And you can get all of the chords in the key of G, believe it or not, with all of the notes in the scale, with sort of relatively easy fingerings, much more so than most other keys. So let's go through them in order. If we're doing a scale over G, for each one I'll go over the note, or over the chord if possible. I'll go from a low D all the way up to top G. So over G, we've already done that one. It goes like that, with the middle finger on the root note. For A minor, there's two options. Either you can do it with your snail fingers and go that makes the high notes easy. Or you can do it with your index finger and your middle finger and go. That makes the low notes easy but the high notes hard. So much so that you have to move there. Hey John, welcome aboard, thanks for tuning in. For B, you can't really do B minor easily. But what you can do is put your index finger on the 2nd fret and do all the way up to there. So index finger on the 2nd fret covers the bottom half of the scale with a B minor chord, like. And if you want the whole scale, you have to do. So the upper part takes your middle finger on the B. But whichever way you look at it, you can get something akin to a B minor that way. For C, we've already discussed, that's ring finger on the C note at the bottom. That's a really easy one that you can do all of them over. And obviously D is open strings. When you're doing D, you probably want to hold down this, which is like the top of a D chord, so that way you've got some kind of chord, because it's a very high root note and it's not very definite, so you can do. So probably the best way to finger D actually is, again, snail eyes or rock and roll fingers. So you put your middle finger on the 2nd fret of the G string and your ring finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, and that way you can use your index finger and your little finger to go up the scale from D. And at that point there, if you look at it, you've got a D7 chord. So you can even get the top couple of notes on the top string. Use your index finger for the 2nd fret and your little finger for the 3rd. Like that. Then E minor's very easy. E minor's open strings. So. E minor is probably the easiest one. And for F sharp, the last one in the scale, you use your thumb round the back. you can make a really good little exercise out of this by running up the scale using each of those shapes and just moving up the scale in the root notes. So maybe go down as well. So and then and this shape is really useful because the context in which you would use F sharp is going to be to resolve back to G. So if you make like a D7 chord at the top but missing a finger and use your thumb hooked around the back, then you can keep that chord down all the way through and it's really easy to get your scale over the top. So yeah, that's your little toolkit really for arranging tunes in G. It also works for tunes in E minor. Just bear in mind if it's E Dorian, then one note will be different. The C will become a C sharp, and of course the C will become well, the C will go really. Just use A major instead. But yeah, it's a really nice little trick for arranging tunes very quickly and easily. If you're in E minor as well, E minor is super easy because your starting point is all open strings. If you leave out the A and D strings, all the others together make an E minor chord. So if you wanted to do something like, I'll just show you my arrangement of coolies that's in that same book as well. It kind of goes like that at the start. So I've got my fingers on an E minor chord, and I'm going between my root and my fifth at the bottom, and then to get the melody note, the A that's in the melody, that one, I just move my ring finger back and forth. So those kinds of things are really, really convenient if you're in E minor, and that's why E minor and G are the two most convenient keys to write kind of arrangements in standard tuning in. Yeah, that's it really. I just wanted to tell you about the G scale exercise. I think it's a really useful thing. The other application of it is if you're playing along with a tune in the key of G. Let's take Out on the Ocean as an example, because that's a nice sort of chilled out jig. If I take the same thing, so I put my index finger on the, sorry, my middle finger on the G at the bottom, and I'm going to add my my ring finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, so that gives me a G chord because I'm muting the A string with the middle finger and I'm muting the top string with the ring finger. So that's a very pure just roots and fifths G chord. And I can use my little scale exercise over the top of that to get the tune in my chords. But here it is with some C's and some D's thrown in. And a cheeky A minor. Like that. So that's all based around exactly the same exercise. I just maintained my ring finger on the D note there, then moved my root to the C, then A minor, and then D. That's a bit tricky. But yeah, that's the same kind of principle. Yeah, that exercise has got a lot of potential applications. That's really all I wanted to say today, and I'm conscious of the fact that I haven't started editing the third part of the John Doyle video yet, and I'll probably be here till about 10:30 again. So has anybody got any questions about that exercise, or anything? Any questions about anything else, or don't know, the meaning of life? Any other business? Oh, no worries, John. Yeah, it's good. I'm glad you found them helpful. Here's a little challenge for you, for everybody. No problem, Brian. Cheers. Yeah, here's a challenge for you. If you pick a tune that you know really well in the key of G, wow, that's a claim to fame, isn't it? You've almost got the same name as well. Yeah, if you pick a tune that you know really well in the key of G as a starting point, G's the easiest one, I think. Run through this scale idea and then try and write yourself out a grid for what the chords should be. Just keep it simple, you know, maybe just G, C, D, and potentially like A minor and E minor if it really feels like it needs those in certain places. But start out with the chords simple is my advice, and then, you know, maybe one per bar if you can. And then try and see if you can work out the melody over the top of your root notes using that exercise. And if you can, you'll probably find that that's a really good starting point for coming up with a cool kind of simple fingerstyle arrangement that you can play along fairly easily. And if you do that, which I hope some of you will, then please do post a video of it on YouTube and drop a link on the comments of one of my videos, or leave it on the Folk Friend Facebook, or email it to me at info@folkfriend.co.uk, because it'd be really nice to see people actually using this stuff. Don't worry if it's not very, not very polished. I think that's part of the charm in a way. But yeah, it'd be nice to see if anybody does fancy having a go at it. Oh, thanks, John, for that that little anecdote there. That was great. Cool. All right then. Well, I'll leave that with you to have a play with. Yeah. So John Doyle Part 3 is out tomorrow, and next weekend it'll be the strumming patterns. And then the following weekend, I had a request from somebody recently for a really interesting Steve Cooney electric guitar arrangement of an Irish tune, in which he does all sorts of things you can only do on electric guitars, like really nice like tone string bends and things like that. So the following weekend I'm going to be getting out my electric, and I'm going to be kind of having a look at that, so that might be quite interesting as well. Yeah, I totally agree, John. If you do the melody first, then you put the bass on for the chords that you want, and then yeah, the chord tones kind of fill themselves in after that. And it's always worth thinking about the chord shapes that you know, and is there a way that you can finger those chord shapes under the melody notes. That's also a good way to come up with really interesting chord voicings as well, because if you've got a melody note that isn't normally in that chord, if it's in the melody, it's automatically going to be at the top of that chord, and at the top of a chord you can add any notes from within the key in order to get a more interesting voicing, which is functionally the same chord but sounds like it's got more kind of emotional content to it. So like if I was playing the melody there, if I was thinking of a G major chord, might be thinking root, 5th, 3rd, root, 5th, 3rd, and then if I've got the tune kind of does that, so I've got an E at the top, so that gives me a G major add 13. That's a really nice chord, and it's a lot sweeter than a standard G. had a 7th in it as well, it'd be even better, but... So yeah, you find some really interesting chord ideas doing that as well. Anyway, right, I'm going to sign off. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in tomorrow's video and on next weekend's stream.